Hey guys, what is going on? It's me, BakuriBox12 here, and welcome back to another Realm of the Mad God item discussion video. I guess this is episode 3 of the Should We Buff It series? Title's still a work in progress, but the item that we're looking at today is something that I've wanted to talk about, and that I was planning to save for later. But then I saw Calcium's video pretty much addressing the same thing, getting straight to the point and telling us, yeah, Ray Katana needs a rework. And he proposed a lot of neat ideas, one of which that was even something I had brainstormed myself. That is, having the projectiles explode upon hitting an enemy, or at the very least when an enemy is destroyed. Having a bunch of mini projectiles fan out like a spell bomb. That would add some flavor and character to the item, to make it just a little more interesting on each encounter. Now, as someone who appreciates the ninja class, I actually really like Ray Katana. I think as an item on its own, it's fine. It's more or less the crystal sword of katana classes. More range, less damage. And for a character like the ninja who's already a glass cannon and has pretty low range, that can be a big help. That's not really the problem though. The real issue is that it's an event white. If this was just a white bag from a mid-tier dungeon, or maybe it dropped from a minion or a tea room boss, then I don't think anybody would really have a problem here. But because this drops from an event god, one of the least beginner-friendly event gods, the Rock Dragon, Ray Katana can't help but stick out like a sore thumb when you pin it up against all of those event whites. Jug, Oreo, Conflict, Ogmer, Ray Katana. It just doesn't fit in as is. Crystal Sword and Crystal Wand are sort of exempt, even though they do drop from a once per realm event. To me at least, it always felt separate from the actual event gods. I think the fact that the Crystal Prisoner has 2 white bag drops to begin with is what separates itself from regular event gods. The point is, Ray Katana simply isn't good enough to justify its classification. Even its fame bonus is really low at only 3%. Yet another parallel to Sea Sword. Now, it does have the unique characteristic of dealing perfectly consistent damage. 1-1-1. Even the number itself has perfect symmetry. And that is neat, but it's just not enough. But even if you wanted to take the easy way out, simply buffing the damage and range a little more, I think would go a long way with making this item more desirable. But for the sake of getting creative, to further tie this weapon to its drop source, the Rock Dragon, I would like to see some kind of a charge shot. You can keep the damage and range exactly the same, but when you're not firing your weapon, it auto-charges, say 1, 2, 3 seconds or something, and then the very next shot that you fire will be charged to do double damage, 2-2-2. And the projectile will look like the Rock Dragon's attack, a long purple beam, only you can recolor it to make it look more golden, like a sunbeam. Plus it would get kind of confusing if you were fighting a Rock Dragon with this item and couldn't tell which projectile was yours and his and all that. The duration in which the full charge can be reached can be designed and changed in a way that makes it so that if a player knows how to perfectly land every single charge shot, their DPS will be better than someone who just holds auto fire and lands every shot. That's where the skill comes in, and the reward for attaining that accuracy. It's a spin on the lower rate of fire weapons, like having a big heavy sword that does more damage but it's really slow. Only Ray Katana's rate of fire wouldn't be changed. You would just be intentionally holding back and timing your shots, but you would still have the option to auto-fire. If you're not a fan of that slower playstyle, then you can still use Ray Katana as you always have, an item with lower damage for higher range. The goal here would be not to rival the DPS of Masamune or Sadamune, but rather get close to it, because we're still going to have a lot of range, but at the expense of needing to be more well-timed. You could even remove the piercing effect if it turned out to be too good. Or alternatively, there could be multiple charged shots. Say for every second that you don't fire, you build up a charge counter. 5 seconds equals 5 charge shots. That way it's more like a rapid-fire shotgun. You could even have each successive bullet deal more damage, starting at 2-2-2, 3-3-3, 4-4-4, etc. Or the damage doubles on each shot, 2-2-2, 4-4-4, 8-8-8. We could even incorporate the explosive effect from earlier. Maybe every time you deal damage to an enemy, a little sunbeam radius will form around it, and deal additional damage to it and all nearby enemies, with damage falling off as it gets further from the center. And for each successive shot that you deal to that enemy, that radius gets bigger and bigger, but if you start missing, it shrinks back to its original size. I've seen some people kick around the idea of turning it into a 1,000 shot for katanas, give it an insanely high rate of fire but low damage. That way the continuous stream of shots would look more like a beam, or a ray in this case. I know I'm not alone in having the idea of a sunburn or scorch effect, but that really wouldn't amount to anything more than bleeding 4 enemies. I thought, well hey, how about blind? Like a solar flare, a ray of light blinding the enemies, so they wouldn't know where you were and they would start shooting in random directions. But that's kind of gimmicky, and rogues would hate you. It also feels more like something that an ability would do, not a weapon that you're constantly firing. Maybe the more continuous continuous shots that you hit in a row, your damage, rate of fire, or range goes up a little bit. Once again, rewarding you for accuracy. So if you can keep your eyes on the prize for an entire fight, your DPS will eventually skyrocket, capping at a certain point, of course, because that would be insanely broken on stationary targets. And with that, I'm officially off script, so I think I'm gonna stop right there before I start saying things like equip Ray Katana and it doubles your loot chance. Obviously, all of these numbers are experimental. If something has to change, we'll change it. Whatever the case, it would appear that a lot of people are in agreement that Ray Katana needs a buff. And if you happen to be in accordance with that notion as well, then let me know what your thoughts are on this topic. Should we simply buff its stats? Rework it entirely? Or is it fine the way that it is, being a crystal sword for katanas, and it should simply drop in a different location? Feel free to let me and everyone else know down below. That's all for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, don't forget to check out the next episode whenever I post it, which will probably be soon. Alright? See ya.